I don't normally comment on X, just lurk most of the time, but I saw this thread and figured why the fuck not, I'll post. I had 3 different events, might have to post them separately, might not post all of them if I get tired of typing. I suck at green. Text poo, so I'll just type it out. The first event I had was when I was a kiddo, although I didn't realize it until I was older, but my parents and school teachers did. Before 9/11, I was always drawing cities and would put the Twin Towers in them burning, although I was like 4 at the time, and I had never even seen them or heard of them. I did this in my agenda notebook, on the desk, on paper at home, all the time. Nobody thought anything of it. And 9/11 happened, and then everyone was very quiet around me. They would try to be really nice to me. They wanted me to draw something other than burning towers. They never told me what. They just told me to draw whatever I wanted. Don't really remember much beyond that, though. Fast forward about a decade and a half. I find my old agenda notebooks in the closet and see 9/11 scribbles all over them from time periods far before 9/11. I finally went and asked my parents about it, and they were extremely squirmy on the subject. But finally they had told me that I was drawing. All of this before 9/11, and that they were hoping I would just forget. They had told me that my mother apparently predicted a bunch of plane crashes between the 60s and the 80s to excruciating detail, down to the exact locations they would hit, although she lost this ability when I was born. Apparently, my grandmother and my great-grandmother had the same ability to varying other degrees. It's really made me question a lot of shit ever since, though, to the extent that I seriously worry about my own thoughts. Story 2. Significantly after this, but before rediscovering this weird life event of mine, I had another incident take place. I had the day off and had gone to sleep. Although once I had awoken in my dream, I didn't realize I was asleep. I lived out day after day, week after week, month after month in this dream that I didn't even know was a dream. However, it was not a good one. Eventually, at some distant future point, the space station was deorbited. I do not know if this was intentional, or if it was normal orbital decay, or if it was even the IS and not just one of the Chinese stations. However, shortly after this, there was a limited nuclear exchange in which 36 nuclear weapons were detonated in the Texas Gulf region. I am unsure what happened with the rest of the country, though, but I imagine it was catastrophic. Services never came back. Shortly after this came airstrikes. No idea from who. It honestly looked like some variant of Su-30 Russian plane. Only a few, however, before those two eventually stopped. About a week after this, it got horrific. There were a bunch of anvil clouds that seemingly developed out of nowhere, and large spacecraft were seen in them. Not emerging Independence Day style, but as if the cloud itself was some kind of portal, and these ships were sort of halfway loitering halfway. And out of the portal, the ships were large, angular, brick-shaped, but had no real texture to speak of. They were sort of solid stone slate gray and just sat there. We never saw anything come out of them. All we remembered were screams from everywhere, and these monsters that would peel the skin from children and parents and wear their skin, and they were capable of perfectly imitating the voices of the people whose skin they took. They did this to lure people out of their hiding spots and take them. Killing yourself to escape them would not work. They could reanimate the dead. If you killed yourself to escape, it wouldn't work. They could reanimate the dead and keep you on some sort of life support for the sake of experimentation. I don't know why or how, but somehow I knew that if they took you that, you were theirs forever. There was no escape. However, they also had large facilities on the Earth. They looked like normal warehouses, but the ones who wore people's skin were inside these. They would liquefy humans in here and keep them in devices that looked similar to dryers, and each liquefied human was kept in their own, and we had a hand, Scanner Win, could use to find where our person's remains were. So we could steal them so that they couldn't reconstitute their remains and make them suffer. Somehow we could reconstruct the entire person back to what they were with this liquid. However, the ones who wore people's skin had these large pools ringed with symbols that looked similar to Zoroastrian dakmas. I don't know the spelling. And they would fill these pools with the people's liquefied remains and bathe in them. And their children would bathe in them and drink them. And their children would bathe in them and drink them, and they would try throwing people in. And if you fell in, then you were one of them. This went on until most of the human race had been wiped out. I do not remember most of what happened, as this was a single dream spanning almost 72 years. Eventually, though their spacecraft were destroyed, most of the life on Earth was destroyed. It had become a large desert. I remember there were still alligators, though, and whatever had transpired had killed the sun. It was slowly dying, as if perhaps they had siphoned energy from it to escape. I don't know if anyone intervened on our behalf, but I think someone did. But I remember I was walking with a girl in a blue dress. She was my wife. I don't have a wife in real life, mind you. But anyways, me and my wife in the blue dress were walking down the road. There was a small ditch on the left side, with a few alligators in it, and a line of trees on the other following the ditch. We were walking home, and there were bits of these spacecraft everywhere. The sun looked like it was setting, but it wasn't. Damaged or something, as I stated in previous post. But we finally got home. It was getting close to nighttime. I then remember her whispering to me very quietly, "We need to be quiet and turn all the lights off, or they'll see us." We did this, and saw lights on the horizon slowly blinking out, one by one by one. I don't know if the lights were really close enough or not, but I could swear I heard distant screaming, like there was areas on their lights were going off, as though even in our victory we were still being hunted. I do not know what our enemy was. We all just called it them. I woke up after this and realized I had been asleep for almost 14 hours. Normally, I sleep 7.5, and that this 72 years of mine had all somehow been a complex fabrication of my imagination. However, every single event leading up to this has happened so far again, every single last one, and I fear that either I am once again in the long dream, or that it has become reality this time, and we are about to see tribulation. All of this sounds ridiculous to believe whatsoever. I know. I still have 2 other stories about similar events to this, if you're interested. The next things to come along are that the rest of the Middle East falls apart. Not just what we're already seeing, but Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Iran, pretty much everything except Israel. Eventually, a space station, no idea which one or when how, will orbit a war between Russia and the U.S. is going to kick off. It's inevitable. Russia is going to invade up through Mexico. The red line is how far into the U.S. they end up advancing due to aid from the native Mexican population, initiating an insurrection due to increased nationalism, and a weak quasi-breakup of the U.S. following a civil war. The green circle is a flashpoint where Russia didn't invade at first. They stayed on one side of the ship channel until finally attempting to cross it, and that's when things go nuclear. 36 nuclear weapons are exchanged in and around the green circle. I have no idea how many are exchanged elsewhere, as that is the last time we have internet or TV ever again. Many other electronic devices and vehicles still worked, however. Mostly older ones, though, and for some reason, as I said, the handheld scanner for finding humans worked. Russia does a few more strikes with aircraft that I assume were hardened against the initial nuclear exchange, although they very quickly stopped, as I imagine they likely ran out of fuel or some such other reason. Very soon after this is when the ships arrived. They are able to reanimate the bodies, if they're fresh. I don't think they can, if they've been dead for a long time or in the ground for a while. But I think there's about a 1-week window that they still can. I wouldn't advise killing yourself, though, obviously. I'm not sure what they looked like. They were always wearing human skin when I saw them. Although it was sort of loose and they would walk upright like humans. But they could run faster than any human. And even faster than any human. And even faster on all fours. Even the child-sized ones were stronger than any human. There was not a way to kill any of them either. I don't mean that figuratively. I mean, literally. In my entire time, I had not seen a single one die. They had a weird sort of glow to them, though. Like you could see under the skin where they had glowing machinery or augmented body parts or something that were part of them, and some of them. The heads didn't look right because you could see the human skin on them, but you could see 4 or 5 glowing, white eyes under the skin. The only way to survive was either run, which wasn't advisable because they will catch you on foot, or hide until they leave. But even that wasn't too good, because they were extremely quiet and would just sit there and wait outside of doors, silently, until people opened them, and then they would take. Then, the only people who really survived were the ones who had already gotten to the middle of nowhere when the nuclear war went down, or those who had basically given away their own as bait to lure them away while they escaped. I would not doubt for a second that by the end of the 72 years, there were probably only a few 100,000 people left on Earth, if even that many. Russian invasion of Crimea, Iraq falling apart and returning to a fractured state. Syrian intervention. My scanner isn't working, so I can't upload anything I've drawn about this stuff without it being shit. Tire quality. But from what I can tell, their technology is compartmentalized, as in they have several hierarchies of technology. Whether this is due to them being an amalgam of civilizations or not is unknown to me, but I think it might be a similar reason to just not wanting us to get their technology. I'm pretty sure the hand scanner was theirs, but I was based off existing human technology. Or maybe human technology, or maybe human technology was based off of it. I'm not sure. Most of their other stuff was absolutely useless to us, though. There was no way for us to use it, somehow with these portals being open. They were siphoning some kind of energy that powered the ships completely different from electricity, although I'm not sure they even needed the portals, TBH. Without this energy, the pieces of their ships were literally nothing more than useless, common metals alloys. They somehow underwent some kind of rapid breakdown without the energy source. I don't remember how the portals closed or how the ships were destroyed. I was in the middle of nowhere at the time. I'm almost certain, 90 anyways, that there's some kind of scavenger civilization. They wait for civilizations to wipe themselves out. And then it's like it's some kind of cosmic law that for the most part, everyone is allowed to pick through the remains, which I think is what happened after the nuclear war. And I think someone didn't like this and kicked them out, but not before they damaged the sun as a final fuck you to humans and whoever helped them. As I said, though, it was not fun. There was something left behind. I don't think it was them, though. I think it was something else. It was something in the long dark that would eat people. They didn't glow, and I never saw them. I just knew not to ever show any light at nighttime ever. And when it was night, we slept. We slept underground under the house, in case the things in the dark came inside and found us. I think they were little more than animals. Maybe something they left behind, but I don't know. I don't even know if the long dark was permanent or not, as that's when the dream ended. The sun was dying. It was also possible, in addition to this, that it was nighttime as it was, that the sun had died, or that they had moved an object in front of it to obfuscate the Earth. Or maybe it was residual atmospheric debris from the nuclear war and everything else that had happened. I know for a fact that something did happen to the sun, though, so it could have been a compounded mixture of these events. In addition to this, I remember one time during this dream, a different occasion, where I had gotten onto one of the ships somehow, and I saw what happened to the people who were taken. They were intubated in their back and varying body parts, not too much unlike the Matrix. However, there were far more cables and other mechanisms that I have no idea what they were. But if you died, then these devices let them bring you back, and most of the people attached to these devices were spliced open with organs showing or missing entire pieces of their bodies. There were a few people who weren't much, more than heads with gore sticking out of the bottom, but they were still intubated and kept alive, and mostly just screamed. The inside of the ships was the same slate grayish color, but there were colors made of energy, perhaps as electronic interface panels of some sort, but probably not. It wasn't pretty colors, though. Just varying shades of white-yellow light, light blue. Ish. It was very basic, too. None of that HR. Geiger alien style. The ships were very utilitarian in design, on the inside. Everything served a purpose, and only that purpose. No decoration whatsoever. In addition to all of this, I say Mexican uprising. What I mean is that the Mexico aligned with Russia and most of South America. So this, coupled with Russia, allowed for a fairly robust invasion. The U.S. allowed for a fairly robust invasion. The U.S. had been weakened substantially already, as I said, due to the internal civil war. Whether it is related to this election or not, though I'm not sure. Under normal circumstances, I doubt they would be able to pull off an invasion, though. So we must be fairly weakened. I know the White House and the Capitol was taken by the People's Revolutionary Force. Shit. Name. But that's what they called themselves, or had grown to be called anyways. So for the most part, the government had already been decapitated before the invasion. In addition to all of this, again, the invasion and subsequent nuclear exchange had all come about very quickly. I was out in the backyard with my mother putting white Christmas lights in the backyard as patio lights. I don't think it was near Christmas, though. We had literally walked inside, and my dad was laying on the floor, watching TV, and had said, well, I guess we just started World War III. And not 20 seconds after that, the first flash went off outside near what would probably be the Pasadena area of Houston, followed by the large area of petrochemical plants on the other side of the ship channel. They looked to be fairly low yield, 10, 20 range, as though they were specifically trying to target smaller areas. But I don't know. We got the shockwave where I was, and our windows were blown out, but the building was still intact with little damage. I had never said they were glowing green under their skin. I don't think I did. They were glowing the same as their ships, as a sort of white, yellowy blue-ish color. I don't have a word for it, but it wasn't an earth color. I speculate on the machinery, but there were bits and pieces poking out through the skin and holes in the skin, due to some people's skin going necrotic. The machinery under the skin looked like a very similar stone gray as their ships. The skin was pretty contorted on their bodies in some cases, though. As I said, multiple eyes covered by the skin sometimes, or others, where the skin didn't exactly fit them right. They still had mouths, though. But I don't think it was for eating. I think perhaps it helped them grab onto people, or for the express purpose of killing or subduing them. I don't even know if they were technically alive, or if they themselves were just biological machines. Some of them really seemed like they wanted the skin as trophies more than anything, though. They collected it, and some of them were wearing multiple layers. And as I said, I have no idea whatsoever as to why they would liquefy the people and put them in the dryer machines in the warehouses. Surely they had some purpose, But I don't. No, it could just be as simple as storage, or perhaps some religious purpose of theirs. They seem to have some interest in Zoroastrianism, as I said. I don't know how even a breakaway civilization could fight them, though. From my understanding, they were possibly the first intelligent species ever throughout all dimensions. Or one of the first, anyways. I can't imagine anyone from this planet could even fathom a way to fight them. It would have had to have been someone else out there on their technological level. I have no idea what Skinwalkers is. Can you give me a link? The ship in that video looks nothing like their ships. Sorry. They didn't have digital displays like that. It was kind of like some strange form of hard light formed out of energy or something. But it had solid pieces that it looked like if the hard light turned off, then they would fall to the hard light floor. But they didn't. They sat there in a static position. The ship had no windows whatsoever, either, and any writing anywhere was in the same light energy as the consoles. The best I can describe it is that the ship was as much an amalgam of a mash of technologies as one can imagine. There was stuff that just simply looked out of place for something. Like that, rudimentary tools along with energy, along with patchwork on the inside of the ships as though they were extremely old. But at the same time, they looked like they were made of metal and stone at the same time. If that makes any sense. I used to work in the plants, and they could actually survive a low-yield blast fairly well, as they're built to survive the explosions of nearby units plants already. You might have to rebuild the control room and change butterfly valves and anything else with an electronic sensor. But most of the stuff out there that could be that sensitive is buried. My guess is it could only take about a month or two to get it back online, assuming you had workers and assuming the plant itself wasn't hit too close. That's pretty similar. Yeah, except they don't drool, although it's possible what you said that they're controlled by them as scouts then. Perhaps some kind of brain implant or some such other similar machination, so I wouldn't doubt it. This is my best paint shop rendition of it, but it doesn't do it justice whatsoever. The things were massive and intimidating, like just up there in the sky, solid and unmoving. Never once did we see one move, and most of the time you only see like half of it. The other half is usually obscured by fog. I can't make it look like it in paint. But the surface is pretty much completely seamless, but it can open up. The inside looks like a mix of the metallic stone, and the energy when it does. I never saw anything come out though, but they would leave these things that looked like giant stone caskets on the ground below the holes in the ships, and the things would crawl out of them.